So, as you know, I've been using this space to talk to some of the more abstract principles that support the habit book methodology. Today, I want to talk about how it doesn't make sense to use force and what you can do instead. And I'm going to talk about it in the context of my methodologies and hopefully not get too excited if people I know join the room. In fact, I'm going to try not to look at the entrance line because that usually makes me lose my shit. So today we're talking about why it doesn't make sense to force yourself to do stuff or to judge yourself when you can't force yourself to do things. And I think what kind of distinguishes the habit book methodology is there are like two worlds. We've got the outer world and the inner world, and I've been doing my best to draw backwards. And it's really easy for other people to talk about the stuff that's like not working out here because you can kind of see it. Like the outer world would be communication with other people. It would be how you're organizing your time. It could be what you're doing with your body. Whereas the inner world is a little slipperier, and it's especially difficult to see your own inner world because you're looking out through your inner world. But luckily, I've lost my mind a few times. And so I've had some opportunities to see in there that have been really helpful for me in getting past shit and also in helping my clients. So when I'm talking about the inner world, basically what I am talking about are your identity, which is subconsciously held, and your beliefs, which you probably don't know you have. So we've got beliefs that are like, I believe that aliens landed on the moon. And then you have beliefs like, it should be this difficult to accomplish this thing. And that might not be in your awareness, but it is certainly driving most decisions that you're making. Under that, I have thoughts. So you can only really think in the context of your beliefs. If you don't believe something to be possible, you can't really entertain it thought-wise. And our thoughts determine our emotions. And it's actually more of our emotional state that determines our actions more than anything else. And so I'm using emotion here, but really what I mean is state. And so that state could be really everything kind of summarizes to me pretty simply into like two states, which is like on, life is good, I'm supported, I feel confident to grow forward, or life is off. Oops, I'm writing backwards and upside down the wrong way. Let's say we'll do the power symbol. So on is that, off is that. And if you can put yourself in this state, the on state, it's basically like you're saying, come on, universe, come on, life, use me, flow through me. And this is basically being connected to all that is. When we are saying no to what's happening inside or outside, we are cutting ourselves off from the power source. If you are riding collective momentum, basically meaning like you're just kind of following the script that is, it's not really that big of a deal. But if you are a highly energetic individual, it is a big deal, and it'll kind of like break you down to nothing. So how do you know if you're a highly energetic person? You have like fuck ton of energy, and it's either expressed in a way that's like, wow, that person is like, wow, or it's like dragging your ass down into depression or really high up into anxiety. And so the secret is really to learn how to align yourself with this on sensation so that energy doesn't stagnate, like drag you down or like knock you off, but really propels you forward. So if you're joining, what we're talking about today are it's the internal world, and I'm talking about it in the context of this very special triangle. And so these are the different environments that I see are available to people to manage. We've got our body environment, our mind environment, and our you environment. And so the you environment is basically, to me, everything that's not those. And this would be your work. This would be your relationships. Here I have like kind of a funnely shape that comes down to this point. And that's the moment. And at any given time, if you imagine this triangle spinning up this way or spinning down this way, you're moving up, you're spiraling up or spiraling down. And you can use any of these points as an access point to drive at the moment. This is a really dense conversation. Holy fuck. Let's take a deep breath. Is anybody still there? All of you still there? Okay. So I'm really interested in helping people with the mind environment because that's like my specialty. But the body plays a big role. If you feel sluggish or physically uncomfortable, it can be pretty tough to move this. Hey, Peter. But if you can't move this, then move this. And if you can't move this, then move this or this. This one's usually a function of the other ones, but it could also be a really strong self-love practice. What a gift. So if you guys are joining today, I'm talking about how you can't force yourself to do things as cute as it would be, and why you shouldn't, or it doesn't make sense to judge yourself when you can't. So this is kind of like the framework of, hey, what I found to be true in behavior change. So most people, when they want to change results or their life, and the result could be their body or their job or their financial situation or their relationships, they look at, well, first they try to just manhandle the results. If I change the things that are outside, if I force this person to behave this way, if I get that, it'll be different. I mean, you could try that. You could spend your whole life trying that. So then let's say you get smarter and you're like, don't worry, I'll change my actions. This is a bitch to move. Sometimes it's easy if you get a strong return on your results right away, because then that feeds back into your identity and your beliefs. So this is also a spiral, and it kind of flows down and then spins back up. So the results or your life feed back into your identity in a way that changes all these other things. So if this is not working for you, the best thing you can do is climb up top and see what's up there. So the people that come into my space are usually kind of like me. And so usually the biggest issues, or rather opportunities, are up here around identity and belief. And that's just basically like that you're good enough and that life is safe. And if you can instill those things up here, then everything else just kind of like snaps into place. It's like the mom duck concept. If you can come to love yourself, like really love yourself, and believe that you are worthy of love, it solves every other problem you have, because then your thoughts are healthier, your emotions are supportive of actions, and then just naturally new results start to occur. So if you are joining, what we were talking about today are why it doesn't make sense to force results, force yourself to do anything, or to judge yourself about it. Because sometimes I get really high achieving clients, and there'll be one area of their life that they just like can't move. And maybe it's around relationships, or maybe it's around their old family dynamics. Maybe it's the way they take care of their body, and they like judge themselves because they're like, if I'm so fucking smart, why is this an issue? But it's an issue not because they're not willing, not because they're not smart, but because something deeply inside of them disagrees with the result. If these two things are in contrast, it's like the concept of somebody winning the lottery, or if there's an athlete that gets like this huge contract, it's not the habits of money, it's the beliefs around it, it's the identity around it. That's what it'll knock down this whole thing. It's crazy. So, I'm also differentiating between the inner and the outer world. And if you kind of imagine this like a mirror, I forget who the YouTuber was that was like, he did like the skit where he was like making a gesture at the mirror, and then he was like trying to get the mirror to change the gesture. But if you want the mirror to be different, you got to change what you're doing. And so it's really easy to look out and blame people and say like, oh, this isn't right and that's not working. But to be honest, like, as far as I can tell, it doesn't do shit. Because you might be able to change the characters, but the script is still in place until you start to work with the inner world. And it can be kind of tangly in here because it's really difficult to see yourself clearly. Not because you don't want to, but because it's like, I used the example last time, it's like, if you have glasses on, you're using the glasses to see the world, but you can't see your glasses. And that's why it's helpful to look outside at the world, because that might show you what you're looking out through, because our natural state is health and abundance. And if those things aren't what you're experiencing in every area of your life, then you have to look at your glasses. And those are pretty much, like I'm saying, these concepts at the top: identity and belief. So I recognize that the way that these words sit with me might be different than they sit with you. When I'm talking about identity, think of it like this. There's like this ball of clay and all these things around it, and they're emanating vibrations, and the strong vibrations make a big dent. And this, it's like, but okay, so now that ball of clay is a child, and those forces inwards are people's conversations and actions. And so you have this ball of clay, and then it's shaped in the first 7 years of a child's life and saying like, this is who I am. But you're not that. You are just shaped into that. And if those shapes aren't supportive of the results that you want to live, you'll never get them. It's fucking crazy. And I'm not the only person that's saying this. Like, I got to this through my own work, but it's the same conclusion, hey Noah, as Tony Robbins' work. So what I'm talking about today is why it doesn't make sense to try to force actions or argue the results outside. And I use this little T graph to distinguish between the inner world and the outer world, and basically saying that the outer world is just a mirror, and if you don't like what's there, you can throw shit at the mirror. It's not going to change until this changes. And what I was saying is, like, if you want that to change and you're having difficulty driving those results, to consider looking upstream from that. So to me, this is pretty much how life works. You get results, they feed into the identity, you get beliefs, blah, 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 blah. It goes back and forth. If you can't move this or this, it's up here. And the best way to do that, I mean, I'm a little partial because I'm a consultant myself and I work with a team of them, is to bring in somebody who can give you that kind of like foresight, that kind of feedback. However, if that's not where you're at or you're not ready to do that, you can also look at your outer world for feedback. So I think of glasses, and I've used this example a few times. If you're looking out and you're like, man, there's a mark out there, our natural state is complete abundance and support. If you see a mark out there, it's because there's a mark on your glasses. And if you can't see it, it's a pretty deep mark. You know what I mean? And so this is not really the most comfortable model for behavior change, because it really requires a lot of self-reflection, and it's not that fast. But it works, and it works forever. It's like the root cause type stuff. What's really beautiful, if you want to accelerate this lesson, again, like up here, if you're in my room, if you're in my world, it's most likely a function of self-worth or safety. And so if you start to repeat those things to yourself, I'm safe, I love me, I love you, I'm safe, I love you, you might be able to overwrite some of those deeper programs and start to pull this thing into a better order. So I know today was like a really intense drive through this material. Again, I'm using the space to practice talking to some of the more abstract concepts that underpin the habit book methodology. I want to talk more about this triangle maybe this week. The triangle, if you're just joining, to me is kind of like, this is original material, it's kind of like, think of it like this way, and it either spirals up or it spirals down, and you have an access point at that direction at the moment. And you've got 3 points on here: the mind environment, the body environment, and the you environment. And at any given time, you can kind of elect to choose. It's like you can influence this spiral through any of these 3 portals. And I'm focusing on the mind environment because that one to me is the most exciting because it's the hardest, but it can be challenging to get in there unless your body is in some kind of condition that's somewhat supportive. Brain chemistry is a thing, nutrition is a thing, physical activity, fresh air, they're all things. It's not to say that you can't start here. It's just saying, like, be mindful that if it's challenging to do any work here, that might mean you start here. If you don't know, I specialize in these things that I'm talking about. I work with clients in a monthly model, and I empower them to have enough information to take over this process themselves. So I basically help them become familiar with what affects their body, their mind, and their environments, and what process they can use to troubleshoot errors and take leadership of those when something goes haywire, which really just all facilitates this sense of peace, calm, and relaxation, which is really a predecessor to all enjoyable life experience, because it's not what you have, it's how you feel. You know what I mean? So that's my main offering. That's Habit Book Entourage. And then I'm also offering these more condensed products. They're called ramps, and basically they're great for people who usually maybe they have a really strong practice in one of these environments and one of the other ones is failing. And so it's like kind of like a boat with like only one oar, so they'll like get some momentum. No, thank you. They'll get things moving in one direction and then they'll like start to falter, and it might be because one of these environments is just like bringing their shit down. And so a ramp is really just a mental framework and some belief restructuring support structures to bring that peace out of fear, out of constriction, out of error, and into a healthy place. So I know I covered a lot of material today. I'm going to post this probably on YouTube. And if this is really interesting to you, I'm preparing, like all of this is to prepare for the offering of a course on Teachable. So if you want to get on a list to receive more information about that when it's available, just send me a message. Or you can sign up on my website, habitbook.com. At the bottom, just scroll to receive the Uncommon newsletter. I also use that for this kind of stuff. So, thank you so much for coming. If you have any questions on this material or how it might apply to you, send me a message. I'm going to do one more recap. This is just kind of like for myself. So today I was talking about why it doesn't make sense or why it's ineffectual to force yourself to do things, and why you shouldn't judge yourself about that. And this is sort of the ladder of reality creation that I've sort of identified. And when people are looking to change results, and their result could be their relationship, their body, their financial situation, they first like grasp at the outside world, and they're like, don't worry, if I can get these people or these things to change, this will be different. But often that's not true. And so maybe they get that, but then they try to organize their actions. And if they have difficulty with this, some people, there'll be areas of your life that you have no problem, that you can notice that there's a result that you want differently, and you take the action, and that's it, and it just takes off. But if you're somebody who has been stuck on an area for a really long time, and you just can't get that shit to move, if you can't get yourself to do this and this isn't going, it's probably a function of having an identity that's in contrast with the results. That could mean, like, if you don't feel like you're worthy of love, you will fuck up every relationship that walks in the door. If you don't feel like you're worthy of money, you will never have it. So it doesn't matter how you come across these things. If this isn't in alignment with this, you're not going to hold on to it for very long. And I don't mean that to be fatalistic, but it's like, it just seems to be true. And then under that are beliefs, and these can be more about what you're capable of, how the world works, how you relate to things. And so basically, in summary, what I'm saying is if there's something in your life that you can't get yourself to move or change, it might be a function of your identity or belief, which can be really challenging to kind of assess accurately because that's how you look at the world. So these are, going forward, these are my identity glasses, my identity and belief glasses. If you're using your identity and belief glasses to interpret the outside world, you can't see them because that's what you're looking through. You know what I mean? And I'm suggesting that if you can't see them, you can start to use your outside world for feedback. And I've got a fuck ton of tools to basically crosswalk what's happening outside to information on your glasses. So if that's something you're interested in, let me know. I made them up, so they're like tools I'll have to tell you until they're available in my course. And then I also talked about this triangle, which to me is like a spiral up or a spiral down, and the different environments that are a part of it. So your mind environment, your body environment, and your you environment. And I'm saying that if you can't get your life to take off, maybe you're really good at managing your body, or you've got great relationships, great job. If you still can't get shit to take off, it might be a function of your mind environment. And so it will kind of be like this wobble, just keeps pulling you down. What's really exciting is, my pleasure. What's really exciting is it's not an impossible fix, and it's really profound work. And most of the people that come into my space are already very self-starter-ish, very hardworking, very disciplined, very into it. They just hit walls, and so these are the walls. They're the shit on the glasses because you can't see them. And so there's a process you can learn to really take ownership of that whole thing, so that as you move through life and you expand into bigger and bigger arenas, Yes.
Mark found that box of bayabs. You want to come up and see if there's any in your box?
Yes, in a moment. Okay. Exercise bands, they're tough to come by right now. I don't know if you try to order any on Amazon. All right, so anyhow, what I'm saying is, like, it's natural as you move into greater and greater arenas until you have some fundamental beliefs like really anchored down, you'll trip over them. So it seems like if you have a belief in yourself, a belief in support, a belief, I know, right? Like, come on. Then you basically override any block you may encounter. It doesn't mean that you won't hit obstacles. It just means that they won't hold you unnecessarily. And some holding is good. Kind of think of it like a pinball machine. So like it can be good to be held back. And so one of the things I coach people through a lot is if you are frustrated that it took you this long to figure stuff out or this long to have that, like keep in mind that when you let go of your pinball and you clear that block, you're not just going to have an average experience. You're going to shoot beyond. And so this is true of relationships. This is true of money. This is true of health. If you've wanted it long enough, bad enough, when you clear what's there, it's like you've got it. It's great. And so it's a really exciting thing. And anything anybody could ever tell you in regards to self-development or self-help, IMHO, it's all just like, if you look under all of it, it's acceptance, confidence, and love. So if those are the only three things you focus on, you don't need to focus on anything else. If you're just joining, I'm going to post this probably on YouTube, maybe also on the Gram. I talked a lot about why not to force results. My mom told me that there are exercise bands upstairs, and and how to use the outer world, like relax your focus away from the outer world and really get into the inner world if you want the outer world to change. IMHO. It seems like, again, like a lot of the things that I've concluded through the last 6 years of working one-on-one with clients and just through my own research and development aligns with a lot of like Tony Robbins' work, it's basically the same principles. Everybody kind of like gets to the same place ish. But again, that's not for everybody. So I really encourage everyone to be their own expert and to experiment until you find what works for you. Yes, I will put this on YouTube. Thank you so much for coming. Okay, bye.